Welcome back to the show. I am Cassio. I'm pitching it to my man, Road Dogg, and he's got a question for you.
Oh, you didn't know? Sometimes when I say that, like, it surprises me how much it sounds like the recording.
Yeah.
Like that.
No, you nail it.
But
you nailed it.
Then I remember, like, oh, I am the recording. So, hey, happy Halloween.
It is.
Do you say happy Halloween?
I think so. Yeah, happy Halloween.
It's happy, right? Hey.
Good Halloween.
Hey, Jason. Hey, so are you dressed up for Halloween right now? I'm looking at your outfit.
No, I'm in a nice shirt. This is a good shirt.
Really?
My mom would call this a church shirt. Now, come on.
That it looks like a prison, like you're in prison. Like a Shawshank or a Oh Brother, Where Art Thou kind of thing.
Yeah, this is the first shirt they give you when you get out of Oh Brother or Art Thou out of the jail. They give you that oversized shirt that doesn't fit.
They give you that in a bus ticket. Bless your heart.
Good luck. Get you a job.
Hey, for real though, it's really sending off, and the truck's saying the same thing.
It looks like one of those online optical illusions. Yeah.
I might throw up.
Should I change?
No, do the worm some more.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, seriously.
I look like one of those gas station dudes.
Look, cars. There's cars for sale, auto sale. So,
come listen to our show.
Free car wash.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah, change real quick.
What? I'm Cold Stone Cream Frosting. It's Halloween. It's all I got.
Man, you look just like him. I'm surprised.
Except I yell, why? Instead of what? I yell, why? I was
like, how?
How? Who?
How the hell did you fit in that vest, you son bitch? So that was awesome. I just released a ton of endorphins, and I'm thankful for that and for the visual.
Cold Stone Cream Frosting in the house.
Frosting. Oh man, it also makes me hungry. But hey, so this is your the sight of you don't make me hungry. I want to reiterate that. It was the name that you went with.
Yeah. No, I took it as me. I'm a full-blown snack. It's all right,
somebody said on Twitter the other day, I sent a picture out of myself, and they said, looking like a snack. And I thought, darling.
That's what the kids say now. That's a good thing.
Is it a good thing? I just thought to myself, it's far from the 100-calorie snack bag, that's for sure.
You're not Oreo Thins. You're all stuff.
No, it's family size, double stuff.
Double stuff.
Yeah.
Most stuff.
Yes, it's all stuff.
Well, I just realized I got to do this whole show like this now because I don't have another backup shirt. So this is going to be awkward. Will you ever get used to it?
I'm already okay with it. That's the weird part to me is I'm fine with it right now.
If you just show me from here up, it's a good look. If I stand up, it's
not bad. Yeah, it gets worse.
Yeah.
It's like in Mexico, the more south you go, the chances are you might die.
Yeah, down here, sure melted candle. Up here, I'm looking just a little bit like I got something going.
Let's keep your arms down. Anyway,
no, I got to work on those. I just noticed.
That's all right. That's all right. So you're
have fun.
I made myself laugh thinking of the joke. I'm going to say there's no way I'm going to complete it now.
Here we go.
But it was like your Halloween costume is Stone Cold Steve Austin and the lunchroom lady. Oh, see, I shouldn't have said it because it was funnier in my head.
What?
Anyway, it's Halloween. Bing, bang, boom. Worship the devil. Okay. No, I'm just kidding.
We're doing trunk or treats now.
Yeah, I do. Wait, that's what my kids did.
Yeah,
for sure.
We do the trunk or treats. All right. We thanks for joining us. We appreciate you on a Halloween week hanging out with us or whenever you're consuming this. This week we got a big one on Oh You Didn't Know. We're discussing a topic near and dear to your heart, dog. The Armstrong family.
Well, it is near and dear to my heart, that's for sure.
Let's get right into it. Yep. And of course, it all begins with Bullet Bob. Talk about just him starting off. I mean, he's been described as one of the biggest stars in the history of pro wrestling throughout Georgia, Alabama, all around the Gulf Coast, Tennessee. That's got to be accurate. He's one of the biggest in the Southeast for sure.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, look, that's what I think people from outside the Southeast who do research and stuff find out that. But for people who live in Montana, they may not ever heard of Bob Armstrong. You know what I mean? The people who live in California may not ever heard of Bob Armstrong, but because he didn't make it on that national level. But it's also like he wasn't wrestling, or the end of his career was kind of developing when this was all becoming a national and international entertainment conglomerate. You know what I mean? So he was just on the very tail end of his career. Was he with Georgia Championship Wrestling, and then it turned to TBS, and it got a nationwide. And so you know, I hear people in Ohio and Michigan and stuff around there say, oh man, we remember your dad. And that was from him and Brad probably being a tag team in the Crockett Cup in that old Crockett territory. So yeah, look, I think, and I'm biased and I don't mind telling you, I think he was one of the most over baby faces in the industry in the Southeast. And I would argue that with anybody, and I don't think I'd find anybody to argue with, because look, they took him to each of those territories and they put him on top with their champion. You know what I mean? Everywhere he went after he got established as a young, scrappy babyface who was also a tough son of a gun. And so that mattered back then. You know what I mean? It mattered if you could handle yourself. A lot more than it does today, I'll just say that. And a lot more than it did in my day. But in my day, you still had to kind of handle yourself. You just didn't have to do it every night. Back then, I think you had to do it every night, so you had to prove yourself. But yeah, Dad, look, he was my father. He was my hero. He was larger than life. And I don't know. I'm glad we're talking about it, because I've been thinking about him a lot lately. And so it's just perfect timing, you know what I mean, for this. This is going to be therapeutic for me. So yeah, look, Dad was my hero, and he was a lot of other people's heroes too. And you find that out. It's just in the South, you know what I mean? It's just like you said, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, Alabama. You know what I mean? Like that Gulf Coast region. He's a lot of people's heroes. And when he passed away, I got to find that out. And so I said I was going to cry earlier, and I don't think I'm going to now, because this feels really good to talk about him. Like, I don't know. It just feels really, really uplifting and fresh to talk about him in a way. And I mentioned this, and I could go on forever, so I'll try to keep this short. But I mentioned this before, I think. I know I've said it before. At least if it was in my head, I said it one time. When I got to hear Robert and Ron Fuller and Jimmy Golden on the Ron Fuller, I got to hear those guys talk about my dad from a perspective that I've never heard before. I got those guys talking about my dad is like Hunter, Billy, and Kid talking about me. You know what I mean? They were that tight for probably 15 years and in business together and running the companies and stuff. And so they talked about him as a peer and as a wrestler in the ring with them and a performer and you know what I mean? And so it was so, I don't know, gratifying, I guess is a word for lack of a better one, but it was so, it just made me feel so good to hear somebody talk about him on their level and how high they held him in their perception. And I know I rambled with that, but it's incredible to me, and it broke my heart in a great way. You know what I mean? Like, man, these dudes were his best friends, and they respected him, and he was a good guy, and he was honest, and he did the right thing, and he beat your ass if you didn't, and you know what I mean? All the things that Buford T. Pusser was in Walking Tall. You know what I mean? That was, and look, I'll gloat on him because he's my daddy. I told you that up front. But like, I saw him that way, and I found out he was that way. Yeah. Holy crap, man. I give myself goosebumps.
Well, look, me being an Alabama boy, anybody from my age or, you know, that generation above me, my dad and my granddad and anybody else whose dads got you into wrestling, of course, if you said who's your favorite wrestlers, you're not getting to three deep without saying, Bullet. He's 1, 2, or 3. He's out of everybody's mouth first. I mean, that was the thing.
Again, I want, because this does go out globally, you know what I mean? I want to reiterate, like, and I don't know why I feel like I have to qualify it, but it was in the South. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That prepositional phrase is gonna come out prominent in this episode, because in the South, the things we are saying about him were and are true. You know what I mean? It's hard to believe if you've never, you know what I mean? I never heard of that guy. Sorry. And so but in the South, Bob Armstrong was the cat's pajamas.
He just, you get it from him. He could talk with the best of them. He had some of the best timing, like you mentioned.
Yep.
An extreme baby face, but just he had the perfect storm back at that time in the business.
Yeah, look, he had a great body. His upper body looked great. It's literally the reason they came up with the name Armstrong, because the guy saw him win a bench press competition and didn't realize it was more your chest and your tricep, which I guess is the arm technically. And so he said, "Oh, Armstrong." He named him Armstrong because he thought his arms were so big. And so look, he had that. He had and this was in the 60s, early 70s. He had hair like Elvis, you know what I mean? A little bit. It was thick and black and dark, and he had it that way. And so then he got, in the 70s, he had the naturally curly hair that everybody always thought the Armstrongs got perms, and no, that was all natural. All of our hair is so naturally curly, it's crazy. My brother Scott won the Afro of the Year contest in a predominantly African-American high school in Marietta, Georgia. And so we've always had that curly hair. He did too. And then he was just cool. Look, I say that, if you disagree with me, okay, but cool is what I think cool is, right? It's what you think cool is. And I thought he was cool. And so I don't know, man. He could work, and he didn't work nothing fantastic, nothing crazy. It was just work. But when they got heat on him, and then he started a comeback. He threw a comeback like nobody's business, and you can go back and watch some of them on video now. Thank goodness to YouTube and stuff. But you can also just his Hall of Fame introduction shows some of his early work in Florida, South Florida, where everybody went, just like Memphis, to make it big. You know what I mean? And so Dad worked both of those territories several different times because they'd bring him back. Because they did good business when he was there. He threw a great fiery baby face comeback. We may not get to this in this episode, but I'll talk about it briefly now. The one time he turned heel, he was a real heel, man. He would have been good as a heel, but it was almost like the John Cena thing. Everybody wants John Cena to turn heel. John Cena to turn heel. I'm not comparing my father to John Cena in his popularity or fame. I'm comparing just the baby face side of him was so overshadowing that they needed him back as the baby face. Even though he was a good heel, it wasn't working because people didn't want it. You know what I mean? They didn't want to see it. They wanted fiery fighter Bob Armstrong back to whoop somebody's butt, and you know what I mean. And that's what they did. But he turned heel for, I don't even remember how long it was, but he grew a mustache, and he had a shirt that said "all this and brains too," and he smoked a cigarette on TV with one of those long gold filters.
Yes.
Yeah. You can go back and find that. There's some heel Bob Armstrong stuff out there that's pretty entertaining.
The Fighting Fireman from Marietta, Georgia. Was he a real fireman?
Yeah, he was a fireman. That's where he was working. And in his first couple of years in wrestling, he was both. That's what he was, a fireman and wrestled on the weekends. You know what I mean? And like he had a set of pull-up bars. I remember driving when I was young past the fire station, and it's where my dad was worked. He had mounted in the ground a big set of pull-up bars at the fire station so they could do pull-ups and have pull-up competitions and stuff. That's how he had that big body, was he stretched his body out, those pull-ups and that lat pull and just stretching your rib cage out with Nautilus machines. Like he was into it heavy, man. And so, yeah, we would drive by there and those pull-up bars would still be there. And this was probably 10 years ago, and they're still there,
awesome.
You know? Yeah, and it's just cool stuff like that to see, because everywhere we moved in our homes, when he had bought homes, we would have a gym and we would have pull-up bars mounted in the backyard. And and we would do pull-ups and we would have pull-up competitions, and you know what I mean? I lost, apparently. I mean, look at me. I look like if you poured a can of soup in a tube sock and held it up, that's what I look like. like a snake that ate a goat.
I want to make that like a TikTok. Just pouring soup into a tube sock and just saying.
That's a TikTok in the tube sock. Yeah, I love it. We just started something, the tube sock challenge.
The tube sock challenge, soup in a sock challenge.
Yeah, tube sock challenge sounds weird.
It does. It does. We've all been there, but we don't want it online.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it.
Well, I'll interject real quickly.
Unless this was a Bluechew.
Not yet. We're getting there. I will interject real quickly. I mentioned my dad and that generation, but my dad specifically remembered the Fighting Fireman from Marrietta. He was a fireman himself, so it was that was the cool thing.
Yeah,
and that was making, to me as a kid, that was making a fireman cool. Like, my gosh,
heck yeah,
fireman can be a wrestler.
Yeah, and look, that's what at the beginning it was rough on him, but he was a local guy, so they made him the local hero. You know, he's the fireman. That's how they prop his character up. And then he had to fight. You know what I mean? And he had to fight for it, and he proved that he could, and he proved that he would, and the rest is wrestling history.
Did he? Was he a good real fighter? I mean, was he a shoot fighter, badass bar fighter?
Yeah. He was not. I wouldn't call him a shoot fighter, but because nobody knew about, or I guess Bruce Lee knew about techniques and stuff, but nobody did way back in the day. It was just who's willing to throw and willing to go, and how fast are they going to, how far will they be pushed? And I think that was the deal with him, was he would not be pushed too far. He may be pushed once, and the next time you're getting punched. You know what I mean? Or he may let you push him before he punches you. But anyway, that time of that matters a great deal. Because if you're talking to somebody and trying to get your point across, and you push them one time and they don't do anything, they're going to push you again. You know what I mean? And so Dad was, you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Come on now.
Yeah, I don't know. Little Aaron Tippin.
Because that is Aaron Tippin.
Might be. Odom, can you? Oh, sorry. I always do the wrong thing.
All right. Let's keep it going. We're going to get to your favorite part of the show.
Oh, whose favorite? Mine?
We're going to the Observer.
Oh, well, it's Halloween. Trick or treat, or screw me, I guess.
Dave Meltzer wrote this in the Observer regarding your father. He was like every fan's neighbor down the street who lifted heavy weights in his garage and would never mess with anyone, but the guy you also knew never try out. And if someone messed up with, he's the guy who would have your back. It was a simple period in wrestling. Armstrong stood for the side of the right over the side of the wrong, and if he got wronged, he wouldn't hesitate to fight fire with fire.
Wow.
Is that the nicest thing he's ever said about any Armstrong?
About any of my family, ever. No, he probably loved Brad, too. Who doesn't? I would, too. Look, it's his opinion, and his opinion makes me angry when it's about me in a negative way, and it makes me happy when it's about my father in a good way. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and so it's all in how I take it. Like, I thought that was awesome. Great words. Even went fire with fire at the end. You know what I mean? To bring it back. Like, I thought the writing was good, and I thought the words were true. You know what I mean? And so I have no problem admitting that when I get angry at Meltzer, it's because he's not putting me over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, just put me over all the time, and I won't have a problem with you. I mean, and as ridiculous as that sounds, that's the truth.
That's all of it. I get happy when I see them trashing me in the YouTube comments.
Yeah.
We get happy when they say something.
Yeah, when they go like, "Holy mackerel, you are awesome!" Like, "Oh yeah, I like you." I mean, I think that's a little human nature. But look, so they get a lot right. They being the Observer. So kudos to them in this case, because I see it as a positive, and I saw it as all true. Like, he was, all of that is the character, but it also is my father. And so he said it was a simpler time in wrestling, and I agree with that. I think it definitely was. And John Cena, and the only reason I say that is, and I think it's a negative on the society as a whole right now, that John Cena, the good guy, the guy who just does right, the guy, boo, you suck. right? That's what half the people tell him every time he walks into an arena. Like, what? That is a horrible commentary on society, that the guy who does what is right and always does the right thing is the bad guy. Like, what are you people telling me? So that's the only reason I say that, is because it was a simpler time. It was where what you said meant it, and and that's that. You know what I mean? And so now we've come to a dark place, and so I'd like to go back to the simpler time, please.
Yeah, I mean, back then, especially in your time when DX is starting to come, then the heels were good guys, and now it's blurred. Now you can be whatever you want.
We are a perfect example of that. I got so self-absorbed there that I wasn't self-aware. So thank you for bringing me back to that. Like, we were part of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That degeneration, and look, it's also good timing because we just had the 25th anniversary of DX. But so we were a part of that societal turn. And when you can look back on it in retrospect, especially from a grandfather's point of view, you know what I mean? It's like, darn, give me the simpler times again. And I can hear a 25-year-old, you know what I mean, going like, yeah, up yours, Grandpa. Right. And I get that too. It's all coming from the perspective of a 53-year-old grandfather now, you know?
Well, I got a little something special for you, Road Dogg.
Oh, you're going to take that vest off?
No, not yet.
Oh.
Listen to this creepy music. Road Dogg, Michael Myers sure is scary. But the last thing you need is to be hairy this Halloween. Luckily, our friends at Manscaped launched their 4th generation performance package to make sure your pumpkins get the ultimate carving experience on this spooky day.
Did you read through this before now? Because it's popping me like it's popping you, and I'm thinking like he hasn't read this yet. Continue. Please continue, because this is a great read. I'm sorry I messed it up.
Turn your bite-sized treat into a king-size candy. And join 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code DOGG. Make the right call this spooky season. It's trick or trim.
Trick or trim. This is the best read. Whoever wrote this, Manscaped, should get a promotion.
Yeah. Oh, this is an award winner. This is a Marconi award winner. Have you ever trimmed your balls and it turned into a Freddy Krueger film? Well, luckily, Manscaped is here to save the day and make sure you're feeling your best in your costume. See? Look, I got a lot of skin showing. I need to Manscape, you know?
I'll tell you what. Or just put a shirt on. Either one.
Unlock your confidence with the Performance Package 4.0. Inside, you're going to find the holy grail of men's grooming items. They've made it easy for you to upgrade your grooming routine. Hey, how about the Weed Whacker, the nose and ear trimmer that provides proprietary skin-safe technology, helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs on those delicate holes. Seal the deal with Manscaped's liquid formulations. How about the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner? Make sure your pumpkins stay fresh. Trust me when I say this, fellas. Your balls will be thanking you.
Amen.
You've also got the Body Buffer, 100% antibacterial body scrubber. It's just what you need to keep fresh and clean this Halloween. Also, if you're looking like Wolverine but don't have a costume on and haven't cut your nails recently, be sure to look into the Shears 2.0 nail kit. Here's what I say. Hand out some of that Crop Preserver and Crop Reviver as trick-or-treats this week.
I tell you what, I like the ball toner myself. I'm hoping to get a handful of ball toners when I reach in there. Somebody
get the dog some toner, please. Here's how you can get it. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DOGG at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code DOG at manscaped.com. Say trick or treat to your beautiful new Halloweeny with Manscaped.
Trick or trim. Good Lord, that was awesome.
Come on. If that doesn't sell any, I don't know what will, man.
I don't either, because all I could think of was them little candy corn pumpkins, and I want to get a bag full of them. I know. Look, I used to not like candy corn either. I know there's 2 kinds of people in the world. 4 kinds, really. one that puts the buggy up at the place.
Okay,
and
I do
one
that.
Just leaves it in the parking lot like an a-hole. Or you can tell which one. You can tell which one I am.
Yeah, you're calling names already.
The second one is a person who likes candy corn or who does not like candy corn.
And you've switched to Team Candy Corn?
I have switched to Team Candy Corn, but only the pumpkins. Have you seen these? It's like a pumpkin, and it's made out of the same candle wax as.
But it's shaped different.
But
so
it's
you like it?
It's a pumpkin. It tastes different too, but I don't know why. It may taste different because it looks different.
The pumpkins hit a little different. That's it.
Yeah. The pumpkin candy corn. I don't know if that makes sense. Pumpkin candy corn. But people out there, somebody will know what I'm talking about, and that's the person I was talking to.
Yeah, the only correct way to eat candy corn is open up the bag and pour them in the trash.
It in the garbage can.
That's all me. I got none of it.
It was me too.
All right,
pumpkins hit different.
Pumpkins hit different. That needs to be a shirt.
Yeah, something. Needs to be something.
Yeah. All right, let's get back. Supposedly your dad got into wrestling by going to a live show with his father, which is your grandfather, of course, and saw Gorgeous George in person. Is that the story your dad told you?
That's the story my dad told the world, me included. He told this story too, and he told it a lot more eloquently than I would ever be able to. So I would encourage you to go back to, I think it was 2011 Hall of Fame induction, where we got to induct my father, and he told this story. But yeah, he was up on my grandfather. I never met that man, actually. He passed before I was born. But that man, he was on his father's shoulders, and he saw a wave of humanity go into the ring, like fighting, and there's an entourage, and this big man, beautiful man with blonde curls got up in the ring, and when he took one of his ponytails out and threw it in the audience, that people literally fought for it. And he said, I just was enamored right then about what this guy has, all these people in the palm of his hands, and he can do whatever he wants to and manipulate them. And I think it was he just caught the bug and said, I want to do this. You know what I mean? And I totally get it. When I saw him do it, which was the first time I would imagine I ever saw wrestling, I wanted to do it too. You know what I mean?
Right. Georgia at the time was full of wrestling, and really TBS helped with that. Did your dad ever tell you why he got in the business? I know he wanted to once he saw that, but was there a why?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think to be honest, he was a fireman, and he was going to be a fireman. I tried the business. He did them both for a while, and then he found out, holy mackerel, I could make a living off of loving you. I've been singing a lot today. I apologize.
We like it.
But I can make a living doing this wrestling thing and not doing the fireman. I mean, being a fireman is actually hurting me now. You know what I mean? And so it was just, I think it was, look, he was having a growing family, and it was a smart thing to do, was to go where he could make the most money, and that's where it led him, you know?
Your dad got his biggest push in 1974 in Florida under Bill Watts as a babyface, and even got an NWA title match against Jack Briscoe, and would wrestle and lose his North American belt at the time to Harley Race. How much of these memories did he share with you?
Well, so I look, that's the sad part is I didn't get sober till 12 years ago. Our relationship has been so awesome until he passed. It was so good, and I spent time with him, but not enough. You know what I mean? And so, because I was working in the WWE, and so, truth be told, like, the COVID happened and everything happened, and it shut everything down to where I had nothing to do but to spend time with him. So it was awesome, because even when in the last days he lived at my house with me, so I would talk to him a great deal, but like I didn't get to everything. You know what I mean? And this is like some of those everythings. But think about the names you just listed.
Incredible.
This was in '74 where he got beat. He lost his title to Harley Race. And that's the NWA World Title. That's the National Wrestling Alliance. So it was all kind of worked about. Even other territories were worked into there, you know. And here, I guess, who was it he worked? Dory?
Jack Briscoe.
Jack Briscoe. I'm sorry, Jack Briscoe. Like, for the title, and you know what I mean, for the NWA title. That's
nothing bigger.
I mean, it's nothing bigger at the time. And so to think that in 1974, when I was 5 years old, my father was on top of the wrestling industry, I just had no idea what a wrestling industry was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but when I go back and I talk about stuff like this with people, or I hear you bring it up, because look, I remember him in a sold out main event Cadillac tournament in the Atlanta against Bobby Duncombe in a cage match, and Dad had a white singlet on, and he's the babyface from Atlanta, and he bled, and I mean he was covered in blood. His he had to go get a blood transfusion after the show for real, because it was good, and his whole white thing was covered red with blood. But he won. You know what I mean? It was like, holy mackerel! It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
How old were you then?
4.
Oh, 4.
And we sat so far up because the people took us up there, and I just remember crying because he was hurt.
You know, he's gonna die.
Because I go back now and see, and I understand the thinking behind all the insanity. You know what I mean? And I go like, whoa, they built this up with storytelling, and people paid to come see the end get told, and you know what I mean? And he was in a cage, and the white knight in white shining armor, the hometown hero boy, he's bleeding to death and he wins. You know what I mean?
Incredible.
It's a Disney movie. And so I got goosebumps talking about it. I want to try to find, I know there's pictures of that. I'd love for somebody who knows how, and I'm sure people listening to this know how, to find like video footage, if that's even, I don't know. It would be incredible just to see that. You know what I mean?
Toss it out one more time for people to listen.
Yeah, it was in
it?
Atlanta. It was a cage match against Bobby Duncombe. I'm pretty sure it was 73. Might have been 74, but I'm thinking it was 73. And a Cadillac tournament against Bobby Duncombe in a steel cage. I remember the picture was on, might have been on the front of a magazine, some wrestling magazine, where he was so soaked in blood, and it was just a gory, good picture for wrestling.
Come on, Pod Pound, y'all get on that and go find it.
Yeah, amen. Pod Pound. Keep your pumpkins perky. Keep your pumpkins spicy.
Pumpkins hit different. Your brother Brad would break into the business very young, 21 in fact. Why do you think Brad wanted him? Was it just a matter of seeing your dad and going, hey, this is the coolest thing ever?
Yeah, I think so. And truth be told, once Brad said, I want to get in, like he started, and everybody said like, oh, he's going to be really good. You know what I mean? And so everybody that he worked, and then you think about like that. Look, this is a whole nother episode talking about Brad Armstrong's history, because you want to give credit to the people that he broke in with. And the reason I say that is because he was wrestling the likes of Dennis Condrey and Bobby Eaton, and, you know, some of the Arn Anderson, Jerry Stubbs, some of these great workers that trained him basically on the job. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he went to Atlanta really early too. And like one of my favorite memories, and I don't know if we're going to cover this, but was the angle between Roddy Piper and Brad and my dad. It was like the first time I really understood the story. You know what I mean? Like the story was Roddy Piper came into Atlanta and was a commentator, and he'd always bury the old man, but put over Brad. And the whole story was, yeah, shut up, old man. Anyway, Brad, how want you? And it got to that point to where it was like that. And finally, Dad and Roddy Piper had the damnedest fight, and they were just, bless their hearts, coked up out of their head and whooping the crap out of each other.
All right, we're going to get to that. I got one quick question, and then I'm going to go to the Observer about this Piper feud, because I did want to get to that.
Oh, if they bury it, I'm going to be so hot. But go ahead.
Quickly, before you get hot, did your dad push any of you into the business or away from the business?
No.
Or did he just let you make up your mind?
He to me, it was the perfect response. He didn't push any of us into it.
Okay.
He let us know up front what it was all about and and the reality of it all. And he also let us know that it's not real. This is not your life. This is not a real thing. Your family, you know what I mean? He taught us, in my mind, and in retrospect, of course, I probably didn't see any of this during the process, but he taught us exactly how to handle it all. What he didn't teach me was how to handle my money correctly. So Conrad, you're about 25, 30 years too late helping me out here. But maybe Clone Rad, you can help.
Yeah. Don't spend your money, Road Dog.
Yeah, save your money. Look, a million people said that to me. Actually, my dad was one of them, but a lot of people said that to me that I just thought, crazy old people.
Yeah.
This is a never-ending story.
It'll last forever.
It's going to last forever.
Buddy.
Wait, I'm fired? What?
The last thing any young person wants to hear is save your money and don't spend it right now.
Yeah.
It's all of us.
So you mean to tell me I need to save all of it? Because no.
Yeah, you're going to need it. No.
See the movie? Nope. That's me. Because I wanted a Cadillac. And I wanted a new house.
That's the point of making money.
Another Cadillac. You ought to know by now.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
Little Billy Joel.
All right, let's get into it. You mentioned it, the feud, the big feud to give Brad a push along with your dad was Roddy Piper, and Piper was being used in an interview. This is from an observer. One day in the TBS studios, it finally happened. Armstrong and Piper got into it, doing an uncontrollable brawl all over the studio. Those types of brawls happen almost every week, but this was at a different level. For one, it had been built up for months, and second, both guys knew the brawl had to be next level to live up to the expectations from all those months. Also, because of how long it had been built up, the fans were screaming, and all over the country, wrestling fans were talking about what they knew was going to happen at some point for months, and it finally did. At the time, even though ratings were incredible, only 15 million homes in the U.S. had cable in 1981, and 1 million homes watched the Saturday and Sunday shows, which averaged 2.2 views per home, or 2.2 million viewers weekly. Today, with cable in 6 times as many homes and network in 7 times as many homes, wrestling rarely hits that number.
Right.
It was the first cable show in history that hit 1 million homes. What a notch in the belt there. And really, it was the success of that show that spawned cable television as we know it. At the time, the belief is that nobody outside of Atlanta would watch a local Atlanta television station, but Ted Turner thought different, figuring sports were underserved and airing the Braves, the Hawks, local soccer, and wrestling. He figured there would be a national interest, but nobody thought it was local wrestling that would be the star program on the station. What a moment in wrestling history with one of the biggest stars for your dad to be a part of. Do you remember watching this, or what do you remember about it now?
Yeah, I remember because I was waiting for it too. Like I was, what year was this? I probably wasn't smart, and even when I
81.
got smart, yeah, I definitely wasn't. But even when I got smartened up, I still wasn't smart. You know what I mean? Like you still don't know what the crap's going on. You can act like you're. That's what's funny about the dichotomy of smart mark. Like you really still don't have any idea what happens and what goes on. And so I didn't either. But when I was waiting for my dad, like, when are you going to beat this guy's brains out? I've seen you beat up people for a lot less at the Exxon station. Like, I've seen you several times in the Winn-Dixie parking lot. I've seen you several times at the high school football game. I've seen you several times. This is my T.D. Jakes impersonation. I'll start sweating in a second.
I was going to say, you need a towel.
Yeah. But so in my mind, and I'm like, why are you letting him treat you like this? We don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, we as a family, I've never seen do that. We've never been this patient before. But it was all part of that storytelling, you know? And so this was a part of the time where I got to see the story told and develop. And then, here was the explosion. And look, they built it. They set it off. That's what so I'm stumbling over my words here because this is tricky to say. Look, I'd love to say my father was the reason that, WCW, whoever, whatever, Turner turned the page and wrestling became, but it's never, Like, it's not that easy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they use 2 hot stars to do it, and that's smart on them. But this is a creative process. This is a team of people who sat around and bounced off ideas and said, what if we did this? And what if every week we do this? And and who knows whose idea it was? And so it grows, and it takes a village, man. It takes a village to come up with, produce, execute, follow up, all of the things to make a great story in professional wrestling. Each piece is so important, and they paid close attention to this story, and they did it the right way, and they could do it over a long period of time. And so they did, you know what I mean? And they took advantage of Piper, this kind of outsider guy coming in here and talking funny and talking fast, and Dad's this trying to be humble, Mr. Humble Pie every time, you know what I mean? And it's just like when you're watching a movie, and they did it so well that you were watching a greatly executed story on television with, okay, I'm not gonna kill this guy today, but one day I'm gonna, and you go like, oh, please do it today.
Yeah.
And then finally on this day, it happened. You know what I mean? And it was a fight, and it was on another level, and they beat the crap out of each other. And to Roddy Piper, the last time I saw Roddy Piper, every time before then, and I mean every time, and I mean I've seen him working for the past decade in the WWE. I'd seen him 100 times. Every time he came to me and said, "How's Bobby? How's Bobby doing?" He was a different kind of guy. But he was so cool, and he called my dad Bobby. How's Bobby doing? Him and Dad were very, very tight. He looked up to my father and respected him, and my dad did the same with him. He was a hard worker that would do right and do, you know what I mean? Yeah, we like to have fun and party, but we work hard and we play hard. And so I think they got along because they were kind of like that.
Well, just some notes from my view. One, like you said, I know you're trying to be humble and say, hey, he didn't do it. But if you're one of the 2 guys in the biggest event on the biggest show at that time, that's a good thing. But 2,
it's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Like you mentioned also, if they don't continue to do good stories and keep it up, it's just a blip, and
it's
then
just for naught, right? It's a spike.
So it started it, but you had to continue it, like you said.
Yeah, and that fell on the creative team. And so, look, I get it. I don't. And look, I say this, it's very hypocritical, but I think we're all hypocrites. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I do sometimes to get a pop or to get a reaction, but like I just don't. I want it to be, at least I want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to be out there. And you can draw whatever conclusion you want to. You know what I mean? I just want to say, like, I want to give props to people behind the scenes and that kind of stuff, because I've been behind the scenes, and I know it takes 2 special characters to be in that spot, to your point. 2 very special characters. But it takes a team of folk to make it come together like that. And so I just wanted to be honest. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. And look, I'm not saying I don't agree with you, because he was the right guy for the job, and they picked the 2 right guys, and those guys delivered. That's a big part too, is you can put together right all that. You put the wrong guy in there and they don't deliver. Yeah. Now it's all for naught, like you said, blip on the radar.
And speaking of, I mean, this is how. Speaking of TBS and Ted Turner, this is why everybody in Alabama's Braves fans. This is why we like the Hawks.
Yeah.
And this is why we were into wrestling, was getting to see this. Hey, we're picking up an Atlanta station, but this is a big deal. Just quickly, did you ever have any interaction with Ted Turner?
No, none, none at all. Sure. But I understand he has some dollar bills.
A little bit.
Dollar bills, y'all.
He likes buffalo.
And I know he likes buffalo.
He wants you to eat that bison.
I tell you what, bison burgers are pretty good. Everything else is a little gamey for me.
Gamey?
I like mine good old American processed, shot up with steroids. I want my chickens to be hitting 500 home runs by mid-season.
I want the Mark McGuire of chickens.
Of chickens.
All right. Let's go back a little bit. Now y'all are all getting
Sosa of chorizo. Sorry, I worked on that for so long I had to spit it out. Sorry.
The Conseco of pork chops is what I want, my friend. Did Bullet Bob? He didn't push you all. He gave you the facts. But once you decided to get in, did Bullet Bob train all of you?
No. So I can speak for me. And to be quite honest, I have two brothers that I should honestly ask this to, like who trained you and what, because I have never asked my brothers that question.
Wow.
But they know who trained me because honestly, here's my story. When I was a kid and they were doing Continental or Southeastern Championship Wrestling, they all used to go to the beach over here and they have, at the public beach, they have barbecue grills and stuff, and they would literally drink beer and barbecue shrimp on their day off and stay at the beach all day. And I would go over there and we'd get in the water and I would just charge them and they would hip toss me, and I'd get up and I'd charge the other one and he'd hip toss me, and then and maybe one would drop kick me. You know what I mean? Maybe so. It was basically just learning how to get up and get hit with something again and fall down. And then I'd never been in a ring before. That was literally ankle to shin deep water in the Gulf of Mexico is where I got and that's Tommy Rich, that's Johnny Rich, that's my brothers, that's Arn Anderson. You know what I mean? Like a lot of guys that came through there would beat me up in the ocean. And so they were drunk. I was young. It was a perfect storm. But looking back
I
on
got
it,
beat up in the ocean and all I got was this T-shirt.
all I got was this $1 million career. Thanks, guys. See, that was one of those blow my own horn, but it was for the pop. I swear. I'm sorry.
It worked.
I immediately regretted it. But so I don't know how they got trained. Look, then when I first was still in the Marine Corps, myself and Robbie Eagle was his name then. Rob Kellum is his real name, and he worked as Maestro. You remember Maestro in WCW?
Maestro, that's an old school
character. It's an old school character, and it was there for a minute. But that's who he is, and now he wrestles on the indies as Papa Stro, I think. But really, me and him and his father built a ring in their front yard in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And on the weekends and on the evenings, when I was done being a Marine Corps guy that day, I would go and me and him would put rugs on the ring we made. It was horrible. And we would run spots we saw on TV. Like we would just, shoot me into the buckle. I'll move. I'll get, you know what I mean? And we would just call a spot, and then we would just run that spot a bunch of times. And honest to God, that was all I ever did to train to be a wrestler. And some of you are thinking, yeah, no crap, we see that. But for me, it was like, I can't believe I didn't just trip over all my left feet. But I don't know. It kind of it helped my timing. And I think that was the biggest thing. The other thing is the it factor is and I see that as being able to read an audience and react accordingly and stuff like that, not only in the match, but verbally too on a promo. Like I feel like that's something you either have or you do not have. You know what I mean? And it's not something, it's something you will get better with a ton of reps, but it's not something you inherently have. You either have it or you do not. You know what I mean? And so
that's the it.
That to me is the it factor. And I had that. I had that a lot more than I had wrestling capabilities, that's for sure. As you could see in my tag team, like Billy could work and I could talk, and he looks good and I feel good. So again, I always make everything about myself on the episode where I said I don't like to toot my own horn.
Just for the record, I looked at the interwebs, which is always correct, of course.
Yeah, of course it is.
Brad,
I have chlamydia?
Brad, Steve, and Scott, all on the interwebs. Their only trainer, it says trained by Bob Armstrong. You have trained by Bob Armstrong, Brad Armstrong, and Paul Orndorff.
Yeah, not true. I
was like, where's the Paul Orndorff story?
Yeah, no, there's no Paul Orndorff story at all. So I do have a Paul Orndorff story, but it has nothing to do. Well,
nothing to do with training.
No, it does. It does. When I tell you the story, you're going to see how it turns around.
Okay.
So Brad and I are doing jobs at WCW. Brad and Scott, Steve, all of us, we're doing jobs. And so they got in the habit of, hey, we can use Brad and Brian on these dark matches for the pay-per-view, and they'll work with Harlem Heat, or they'll work with, and so they did that with me and Brad on several different occasions. We would work the dark match on the pay-per-views. And so one of them we worked with Paul Orndorff and Paul Roma. And so we were wrestling the match, whatever, it was going all right. But all of a sudden, Paul Orndorff shoots me into the ropes and didn't say anything. He hits the ropes, I guess, 45 degrees away from me. I'm not good at math, but not the opposite rope of me, but the side rope. As I hit that, he hits that, and I'm not sure what's going on, so I'm just kind of going. He hit me with a forearm that knocked me into Mara, and this was 12 years ago. So he hit me. It was actually like 30 years ago. Sorry. But, I mean, he hit me so hard, it about knocked me out. And as he was picking me up to do something else, he said, "Welcome to the business, kid." See?
And you were trained by Paul.
He was training me. If you get out of line, maybe I hit him hard. I don't even, that's how young I was in the industry. Wow. And it just came to me right now. That's how
wild.
I may have stiffed him with something. Ooh. You know what I mean? I didn't even think about that until just now. Holy crap. I probably hit him being stupid and young. I probably did something out of disrespectful, not knowing it. And he got me.
I wish
So
we could watch that
trained,
match.
I was trained by Paul Orndorff, and he's still training me to this day.
How about that? He trained you in 2022.
2022. Paul Orndorff was a friggin' man. And I mean all man.
Come on now.
He whooped Vader's butt with his flip-flops on in the locker room. Punted him in the face with his flip-flops on. Come
on now.
That's a man right there.
If you fight anybody and you flip-flops, much less Vader.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
he was a man in football too. Like Paul Orndorff was a man's man. Like that's all there is to it.
Talking about your dad, Bullet Bob, he lost a loser leaves town match in the Gulf Coast.
What?
And came back with a mask on as Bullet.
Oh.
How fun is this stuff?
Hey, he is shifty. That's the old man. The old man's always been shifty. Look, this is. I believe this same exact gimmick would work today. And I wanted to do it, and I said this before. Again, I did not throw out the idea, but I pitched the idea of trying to do it with Sami Zayn and El Generico on each show.
Incredible.
And, yeah, and so I still think that would be awesome. But you have to play it out like, no, it's not him. And so
Never sell it.
It is like a stretch of the imagination to ask you to buy it, but it's also fun. If he was a heel or something and it's not fun, then boo, you're insulting my intelligence. But if I'm in on the joke and I like the joke, like if I'm a fan of Bob Armstrong, like no, Bullet's Bob's best friend. They grew up together and you know what I mean? And you just, and it just worked with Ezekiel. You know what I mean? Like it just
amazing.
It did the exact same thing.
We didn't even
Ezekiel.
put a mask on him.
No, they just shaved him. They just shaved him.
He manscaped and moved forward.
And his pumpkins were spicy. They just hit different. And look, Ezekiel, it got over. Like it was fun. We all were having fun with it. And I think that was the idea here too. But yeah, so he came back as the Bullet, and same tattoos, same body, same gear, same everything, except a mask on. And so it was like, no, and the heel, it's great to even think about. The bad guys going, it's Bob Armstrong, I'm telling you. And like Gordon Soley would be, well, sir, you do not know that, so for now we're going to say it's the Bullet. You know, and it was just like, oh my God, everybody's in on it, except for the bad guy. You know what I mean?
That's the key to that whole angle, though.
I think so.
They have to sell it that way.
Yeah, I think so too. Right, and that's what I'm at. That's when I say they're asking you to stretch their imagination here, but it's fun in this instant. You know what I mean? So yeah, I want to play along with this story, and you may not. Look, I think and I'm sure they did get to serious angle of I'm going to prove to the world you're Bob Armstrong because I'm going to take that friggin' mask off you and show to the world, and you're never going to wrestle in Southeastern Continental again. You know what I mean? So I'm sure you could have got to, oh, this is fun. Don't you take his mask off, you son of a, you know what I mean? Like very quickly. Because you're a Bob Armstrong fan, because you're an Ezekiel fan, whatever, you know.
Do you remember why your dad moved from Georgia to Gulf Coast?
Because we bought a house down here and he had 10% of the company.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was a business move and deal. Like, look, when we came down here And we bought an apartment down here. We rented an apartment down here when I was in the 5th grade. Funny story, real quick, it's a little Judge Ito sidebar. I was riding my bike one time to school from this apartment complex I'm talking about. I was riding my bike, and there were people on the playground, and so I was like looking at them trying to be cool, and I just ran headfirst into the monkey bars. Did a backflip and landed on my butt, started crying, got my bike, went back home, didn't go to school that day. Anyway,
like Orndorff later. Those are the Orndorff clotheslines, buddy.
Good night. It was a good one. It was a good one. So we in 5th grade, when I was in the 5th grade, we rented an apartment down here, and look, it was so less populated than it is right now, but it's still like a little pristine piece of property. It's just grown up a lot. At the time, man, Gulf Breeze, Florida was a little island in between Pensacola and Pensacola Beach. There's a little stretch of land called Gulf Breeze, and that's where we rented a place. And it's a little beach community, and it was awesome, and we bought a house there. And so I think it was all, hey, I can go down here, put some money away. I got 10% of the business. I can do this. I can do that. I think it was his exit strategy. You know what I mean? I wish I'd have had one of those.
Now you're stuck with me, not wearing a shirt for 2 hours.
Well, look, those are some of those mountaintops in my life.
You're still all the way up.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
I found this fascinating in my research, which means it's probably not going to be true. This is always number one. I love playing Is It True or Not with you.
Okay.
After a weightlifting accident in the mid-'80s where weights fell on his face, it was feared his life was in danger and his nose was torn entirely off. He needed extensive plastic surgery. He would wrestle mostly under a mask at that point. Later, after his face healed up, he would wrestle at times with or without the mask. He'd decide based on whether he was having a good hair day or not. How much of this is true?
Every bit of it.
Really?
Yep. Every single bit of it. So I will never forget going to pick up my father at the airport and them wheeling him in a wheelchair out of that airport to our car. And he had, and I'm not kidding, buttons like I have on this friggin' shirt right here, this button right here, 4 of them, 2 and 2 on each side of his nose. His face was just black and blue, bruised and hematomas. And so he was doing brain crushers or tricep extensions, but the laying down on the bench where you do, an extension. See, now we're showing my flabby arms. But and the bench was not secured to the ground. So the bench flipped. And when it did, all that weight hit him in his face. Oh. And so it literally tore his nose in half and ripped it up. And
No.
So my brother Brad actually went into shock and almost passed out when he saw it. My dad got up and literally one of his nose pieces was stuck up here. He pulled it down and said, I effed myself up, didn't I? And he was looking in the mirror, and Brad almost passed out. And the guys they took him to the emergency room. Look, it was bad. They had to do a bunch of facial surgery. His cheekbones were wire till the day he died. You know what I mean? I guess they're still wire. But a bunch of reconstructive surgeries, very problematic. But look, he was a dude that brushed stuff off and kept on going. And maybe we'll talk about his pinky here in a minute. But if we don't, remind me to.
Oh, that was my next question. Had his pinkies cut off because he lost feeling in it and couldn't use it to grip. True or false?
True.
What?
True story. He couldn't grip the bar good. And look, so this is, it's a crazy story, but if you know my dad, it makes perfect sense. Working out was his life. I mean, his life. And when he couldn't work out anymore is when he started passing. You know what I mean? And I'm not even kidding. Like he didn't have that in his life anymore. Then when he didn't have my mom anymore, he was checking out, dog. He was ready to roll. And so he worked out again. So it was his life. His pinky was messing with him because he couldn't wrap it around the bar, and it wasn't really, he said it was getting in the way. But I don't see how that's possible. he said it was getting in the way. So they said, well, what can we do? Look, it was curved. So his pinky was kind of like whatever that thing is where they have like a pinky curve. And so he couldn't do it. He couldn't straighten it. He couldn't do anything. The doctor said, well, I can just cut it off at that second knuckle. And he said, yeah, will you do that? And literally, I'm not even kidding, literally, he didn't do it right then, but it was scheduled. And 2 days after the pinky was cut off, with a big bandage on, he was back in the gym working out again. And it was at the gym right across from the Andrews Institute where they did the surgery. So it was, everybody was like, oh, you probably shouldn't be in here, Bob. Your finger got cut off 2 days ago. But it was, look, that's just...
Incredible.
Look, I think that's a bit far-fetched, but I think it's a Marine Corps attitude. Is you go forward until you meet an object that constructs your forward progress, and you get rid of it. You know what I mean? And then you forward progress some more.
Adapt and overcome.
So, yes, and whatever happens, get it out of the way and keep going forward. And I think that's how he lived his life. And I know it's stupid at times and honorable at times, and I would argue that's about everybody's life, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mine's more stupid than good. I just peed a little.
Dog.
Not because I'm scared. Just
the
because I gotta
nights
pee.
are getting longer.
And
the breeze isn't. Yes.
Sorry.
They said stiff, but I say getting stronger. That's right. This episode brought to you and sponsored by Bluechew. Guys, we all know that confidence can take you far in life. That's especially true in the bedroom, especially when it's time to step up to the plate. That's where Bluechew comes in. Look, we'll have you stiff as a skeleton. I made that one up. They didn't.
I know. But Bluechew will have that stricken from the record, please.
Bluechew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night. You can plan ahead or be ready whenever the opportunity
arises.
The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you're going to receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online, so no visit to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy.
You know what I love about it the most?
What you got?
It's delivered to my house in it's delivered to your house, should you get it, in a discreet package. But nothing, I repeat, nothing will be discreet about your package.
I mean, look, it's time to get off the couch, back to work. If your tool needs an upgrade,
get to work.
Bluechew.com, all right? You've got it looking right. Now get it working right.
That's what Mama said. Like, with Manscaped, you get it looking right.
Yep.
Now you
Bluechew will get it working right.
Your little snack size, your little fun size thing. Go ahead.
So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it.
Chew it and do it. That's a great tagline right there. Chew it and do it.
Yeah. Bottom line is, have better sex, they say. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try Bluechew free when you use our promo code what?
DOGG.
That's right, DOGG at checkout, and you'll just pay $5 shipping. That's Bluechew.com, promo code DOG to receive your first month free. Visit Bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Bluechew for sponsoring the podcast.
Thank you, Bluechew. And to all you guys out there, get to work like a doctor.
Now that we've talked about your dad, let's get to the bros.
Okay. All right.
Scott, got into the business as well, and please go check out Dog and Cat's interview from a few months ago. And Scott will be most remembered for his run as a WWE referee. But what are your first memories of Scott in the business?
Well, so I saw him first, and I was young, and I think he was trying to get bigger at the time. He was like an announcer, an in-ring announcer, and a backstage interviewer, you know what I mean, on Continental. I think it was Continental. It might have been Southeastern at the time. They went back and forth. So but that's where I saw him. And so I kind of knew he was training. He was going to be a wrestler, but he was started out as like a promoter, and he kind of did some stuff where he would drive around with the promoters and kind of did the old Shane McMahon thing where Vince made Shane do, I don't know if he made him, but Shane did like every job in the company. You know, he would put the ring up, he would do this, he would do that. He had to do everything so he would know what everybody did, you know. And so that was kind of what Scott did at the beginning, but then he started being on screen as a like in-ring commentator or you know what I mean? And so, or he's going to ring the bell tonight or whatever. He was on screen, and then I kind of thought like, oh, he's going to do something. One day they're going to beat him up, and Dad's going to save him or something. You know what I mean? And so yeah, that was the first thing I remember of him. But I also remember very early on, he bought my first car for me, a Ford EXP.
Woo!
Yeah, it was orange, like Ford Mustang orange. It was just a 2-seater little car. I wish I had a picture of it to show you, but I don't think they had photography back then.
He's 8 years your senior, right?
8 years my
You're the
senior.
youngest.
I am the youngest. I am the baby.
All the brothers are older than you. Scott is considered, quote, a journeyman in your mind, In your mind, between all the roles he's done in professional wrestling, do you think he's a, quote, journeyman? What's the correct word?
Look, I think people think about that term differently.
Yeah.
To me, that's a positive thing. Like, I think people go like, but I don't know. So I don't know. I'm talking about how I feel about it. I think it's a positive. I think if you can do anything, you can do everything. You're a jack of all trades, a man who wears many hats, a guy who has 3 penises. Like, if you're talented and gifted, that's a good thing. You're a journeyman. You can do it all. But maybe that's not what it means at all. And I'm just lying and threw in the 3 penises just to get a penis pop out of you. Yeah. And it worked. I'm sorry.
It did. But if you got 3, I know this is.
Yeah.
I know.
Look, 2.
I know you need some Bluechew.
Bluechew, do 2, but 3. Come on.
Yeah. I have to ask. Everyone's wrestled their friends in the living room and all that in the backyard wrestling. This many brothers. You got to be putting on shows and everything growing up, right? You're knocking each other around.
So in my house, we don't win every fight we're in, but we're willing to fight in every fight we fight. And so when we wrestled in the backyard, it didn't end well normally. So we were tried to keep apart, but sometimes that didn't happen. But yeah, so look, I've actually wrestled my dad and my brother Scott. I didn't ever get to wrestle Brad. And I don't know. I think I wrestled my brother Steve one time too, as a dark secret in Smoky Mountain. But like that's awesome because it is. Then you can play rough, but you're doing it in a safe spot where you're not going to fight unless you fight afterwards or something. But like we didn't wrestle too much growing up because it never ended. It always ended badly for me because I was the baby, so I got beat up a lot. But I also got protected a lot too. You know what I mean? He's the baby.
In the business. To
this day, I go like, yeah, I'm the baby. She loved me the most. So
there you go. That always works.
Yeah.
What did it mean to you? It seems like every wrestler who's had a generation above them wrestle, siblings or dad or whatever the case may be, has a different experience. What did it mean to you growing up as an Armstrong in the wrestling business? What did that lead to you?
Well, look, it led to everything I have, and I don't disagree with that one moment for one bit because look, yes, I became the road dog, and I kind of established myself on a domestic and international level on my own. And that's not tooting my own horn. I think that's just being honest. And I'm proud of that. But had I not been an Armstrong, I would have never gotten an opportunity to do what I did. You know what I mean? I would have never gotten the opportunity to even go and do, or I might have, but I wouldn't have gotten the love that I got. Because a lot of people that were running the show back then were friends of my father. And so it would be silly to say, oh yeah, I established myself on my own because I did not. But however, I didn't mean to do that. That's just what the universe gave me. You know what I mean? I would have been Brian Armstrong in a heartbeat and proud as a peacock to be that. But it was just the world provided me with an opportunity to be the roadie, and it changed into the road dog, and then the road dog Jesse James. And so even that way I felt like James. I'm a member of the James gang. At least I'm keep holding it down. You know what I mean? Somewhat. But yeah, look, proud to be an Armstrong. You know, we're just like any family. We love and we fight and we get along and we don't, and we're perfect and we're imperfect. And you know, I don't know. I'm proud of my family. And so, but again, I'm also happy that I was able to kind of establish a character that wasn't under that umbrella per se. I don't know if that makes sense or not, if I'm just babbling. I am just babbling, but still.
Everyone says.
I think technically that's what a podcast is.
Yeah,
right?
that's what it's supposed to be.
Okay, cool.
Which one of you is the best worker? Which one of the Armstrong boys?
Brad Armstrong.
Hands
Not
down.
And he would get 5 votes. No, he'd get 4 because he'd vote for my dad probably.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Brad was the first one to get first one of you to go to Japan, correct?
Yes.
Is that a big moment?
Well,
hey, we're going to Japan.
Dad went to Japan too.
Okay.
Dad worked in Japan back in the day and I did hear some stories about him and Crazy Luke Graham in Japan, and him and Crazy Luke Graham then going to South Africa to wrestle, and they stole all the money. And they didn't steal all the money. Then my guy wasn't going to pay them, so they went and took the money and left. They were in South Africa thinking they were going to get killed. But so like look, it's just, you know, stuff happens. But yeah, so Dad went over there. So the Armstrong name was known in Japan, but literally for probably 20 years earlier, you know, than when Brad went. And so Brad was one of the first ones over, and they loved Brad. They would bring Brad as often as possible. So yeah, that Japan loved Brad, and everybody else went but me.
Really?
Yeah, I've never been to Japan. I've never even been to the country of Japan.
Wow.
That's a true story. And I love never mind.
We got to get you going.
We got to get me to Japan.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Brad is the one who dubbed the Armstrong Curse when he turned heel in WCW. What's your take on the, quote, Armstrong Curse?
So I don't really remember him turning heel and doing that. What I remember of that, and look, I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just saying this is how I see it.
Yeah.
The truth according to Road Dogg. I remember Bobby Heenan saying that a lot when me and Brad would wrestle, and maybe it was pre-me, you know what I mean? And I just didn't see it. But I remember Bobby Heenan would say the Armstrong Curse, you know, they're out here, and then they can't win a match, and that was the whole deal. It was the reason why I airbrushed "Look, Mom, no curse" on my shirt when I got to WWE or WWF at the time and was the tag team champion. It was a way for me to go, yeah, screw you. 6 months ago, you were talking about how I couldn't win a match, and now I'm the friggin' tag team champions of this company. But it was, you know, that was the deal. It was the Armstrong Curse.
What are some of your favorite or least favorite memories of being in the business with your family?
I got to be honest, I can't think of any that were unfavorable.
That's a good thing.
And if it is a good thing. And even if I could, I probably wouldn't bring it up just because that's our business. You know what I mean? If we want to beat each other up on Thanksgiving, that's none of your dang business. You know what I mean? But I had great times because this was my whole life, man. This was me growing up. This was me first. So I get torn up between these two. The first match I ever had, I sometimes say was with Terry Taylor, but I honestly think that might have been my second match. The first one I ever had was with my father in 1991. Right after getting back from Desert Storm, and it was in Colquitt, Georgia, and it was at the Mayhaw Festival for Mayhaw Jellies, and we rode the fire truck downtown in Colquitt, Georgia, and then had a show later, and I don't know, man. I remember that like it was like that's a little small hometown, and we rode in the parade on the fire truck. The Armstrongs did, and we worked later. That's the kind of stuff I remember. You know what I mean?
So
I remember canceling my senior trip, and me and my best friend who joined the Marine Corps with me, Grant Drugsma, we went on a tour of Smoky Mountain Wrestling with my dad instead of going on the senior cruise with our people, because we wanted to go and live on the road and see what that was like. And we did for like a week. We stayed in hotels and went to the show and saw, you know what I mean? And it was just, we got to be a part of the crew for a week. And so that was super cool. But yeah, I just have it's my whole life, man.
Yeah.
It is. It's my whole life growing up like that and sitting in those bleachers way up or sitting on the stage where the fans can't get to you or, you know what I mean? Like I remember that. And I don't know, man, I just great memories of all. I beat my father in a loser leave town in Smoky Mountain. I think it was a loser leave town. Yeah. And me and Larry Santos, Larry Santos also wrestled as Mr. Tennessee sometimes. But he worked a lot in Georgia Championship Wrestling. He would do jobs and stuff for him. But we were both the Black Ninjas. And so Larry Santos worked with Dad because Dad worked with him a million times and Dad loved him. And so they worked the match. And then when Larry got bumped out of the ring, he rolled under the ring and I rolled back out. And I had a chain. And I hit Dad with the chain. That was the only time I ever got to work with him. Was
you dirty dog.
One thing, and sent him out of town packing. Well, that was because he was going to be done working there. He was going to be done wrestling and start to do the general manager stint. So he had to get out of there.
Well, all these memories.
Sound like I'm going through puberty.
All these memories, all the experiences led to something, and that was a WWE Hall of Fame induction. Oh. Talk about hearing the news that this is about to happen, and just that had to be an incredible moment for the family.
I mean, it really was. It was surreal. I think it was. This is the argument I have inside my head, and I've really done it a lot on this episode, and I apologize, but this is what goes on inside my skull. It was Atlanta, so they used a hometown boy again that they thought would get a good nostalgia. You know what I mean? There's even booking that goes into these WWE Hall of Famer things that, you know what I mean? Like you got to think about this. Who's going to sell tickets? Who's going to, Dad, I don't know was going to sell you any tickets that year, but they had those guys. And so this to me was one of those where I'd go, oh, they just did it because he was a local guy. But I think they did it for the right reasons, and I think it was the right thing to do. I think he's a big enough star that he should have been in the WWE Hall of Fame, even though there's not a Southeastern branch or something. Right. You know what I mean? Where he would totally be in that for sure. But this was a thing where, look, Vince knew of my father. Vince tried to get my father to work for his father, tried to get my father to work for him. And so I argue with myself about that a lot. Oh, did they just put him in there because it was Atlanta? Did they just put him in there? And that's just me trying to find a way to not go, no, he was friggin' over his crap, man. And they got him in. They brought him in because they thought he'd get a pop. And to this day, like Vince put over his promo, his speech, not ours, but my father's speech. Vince to this day was like so sweet, so short and sweet and beautiful. Like, oh my God. And because look, people go up there and they talk for 45 minutes. My dad got up there and told a story for about 3 minutes and then said, well, I'm out. You know what I mean? And it was like, and it was a good story. It was about the one earlier that we talked about who's the beautiful guy's name? Tiny
Gorgeous
Tim.
George.
Gorgeous George. I knew they were the same number letter.
Beautiful
whatever.
Guy.
Beautiful
guy was a Robert Fergal McDivitt.
Brad Pitt. I didn't know who you were talking about.
I think Fergal McDivitt beat Beautiful Guy for a tag match.
Well, he beat Beautiful Dude.
Beautiful Dude. Okay.
Yeah, he's Beautiful Guy's protege. BD.
I forgot it was a different generation.
They call him BD.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have no idea what we were talking about.
Your family legacy. It was a great moment. You talked about how great it was.
So yeah, his induction speech, but I'll never forget him before we went out there as we, sit there. We got it. We got this, we got that. They were like, hey, Brad and Scotty were both like, you talk, you do the talking. And I go, well, no, I'm going to do my part, but somebody's got to do. So, and they were like, no, you do this. So anyway, we went out there and I kept it short and sweet. I wanted to get to him. It was about him. It wasn't about me. And so I just thought we were a tight-knit unit that I know from a production standpoint was very appreciated because those nights tend to run long, and when they tend to run long, it's wrong. You know what I mean? We need to get this up here. This is not a show, not a wrestling show. Let's knock this out,
I know you battle with yourself on reasonings, and like you said, it's tough to just take it for what it is, and maybe this is kind of a big question that's hard to answer, but just before we get to some fan questions, as we wrap this up, what do you think the Armstrong family legacy is in the wrestling business?
Well, and look, I'm gonna be honest with you, and you can tell me if you think I'm being honest. Look, I think the Armstrong family is a strong wrestling family. I think some of our demons have overshadowed that at some point, and so I kind of think there are some out there that look at us as like, oh dang, you know what I mean? It's not the Von Erichs per se, but the demons had something to do with our careers and our lives and how far we went and how far we didn't go, and you know what I mean? And so and decisions we made. So I hope that I'm wrong, but I do think that negative, the fighting of the demons and the maybe even more so the quick temper. Like my family's known for punch first and ask questions later, and so I don't know. I have no idea. I'm all over the place, but I do think some of the negatives only stand out in my mind because I'm hypercritical and my own worst enemy and my own worst critic. But I hope they think, hey, there's a good group of guys that wrestled and were pretty good at it, and they had families and they were loved and they died. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what other legacy you could possibly want. You know, in time, Hulk Hogan will not have been a thing. You know what I mean? In
Right.
time, and on a much smaller scale, Bob Armstrong is not a thing. If you ask the world today, who's Bob Armstrong, I guarantee you 90% of them would say he was an astronaut. And I might be one of those 90%, because I think it was a trick question because he's my dad. But like I just think what other legacy can, you know, it's wrestling. And it comes back to, and this is a perfect way to close it up in my mind. I'll probably screw it up now that I said that. It goes right back to what he taught us growing up, and he taught us in the wrestling business is if you want your legacy, and this is, I'm so serious right now. If you want your legacy to be how good a wrestler you were, then you're doing it wrong. And that's how I feel, and that's how my daddy felt. And so I don't know if I care what my wrestling legacy is, and that's just being honest. I hope people who have families and people who have love and stuff in their life, I hope they understand where I'm coming from. Not that I'm dismissive of my fame or fortune, and believe you me, I don't have a fortune, but the stuff that I did have and was given because of the fans and fandom, so thankful. Wouldn't trade it for the world. Part of my life. Not the really important part. And so Dad taught me that up front. Family first. You can debate, and my dad did. A lot of people say God first. God, family, country. Country, core, family, country, core. We had all kind of, me and my dad had several different ones, but family first was his. And we talked a lot about that as he was going to pass, about who should have been first and who shouldn't have been. And so, but that's where I come from. I'm the spice in my father's pumpkins. And that's it. You know what I mean? That's how I am. If you liked me as a wrestler, cool. If you didn't like me as a wrestler, cool. I appreciate you considering me to talk about me, but when it comes to my legacy, I'm sure hoping it's something more important than that. I sure hope they talk about me conquering demons and winning at the end of this, or as of right now anyway, as a survival story, a victory story, and my family, my grandkids, my wife. We've been together 26 years, so we've been through it all, and so. I don't know. I would hope that would be my legacy. Like, oh man, he stayed with his wife. He worked it out. He raised his family. They raised grandchildren. And then he died on his farm in a rocking chair on the front porch. Come on, right? That'll get, you know what that'll make you do? 3. Shama, shama, shama. Oh, I broke my finger.
Come on now.
Just kidding.
Let's get to some fan questions before we do.
Questions.
Why don't we share a message from our buddy SaveWithConrad, who tried to tell you.
SaveWithConrad.
You needed him years ago.
Conrad, and I didn't listen. But you people should listen, and listen now.
Listen to this.
If you could change one thing about your home, what would it be? a new kitchen, a new master bath, maybe put in a pool. What if you could do it with no money out of pocket and cheaper monthly payments? SaveWithConrad.com can help, and you can even skip your next 2 house payments. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender, SaveWithConrad.com.
All right, dog, let's hit some fan questions before you get out of here. And they got some good ones, and they are excited about the Armstrong family.
I am too. This has been awesome. Before we get into that, let me just
You haven't cried yet.
Yeah, no. And you know why? I cried on the way here, literally thinking about the topic and in my car. And also listen to some music that might or might not make me cry every time. But I look, I like that because the music that makes me cry breaks my heart. It keeps my heart soft. If my heart breaks a lot, then the world can't put that candy covered shell on it like it does an M&M, and you can actually get the real stuff out of it. And so that's what I think about that, and I use that analogy all the time. The world will harden your heart. So put yourself in situations to keep it soft. And that was one of my drives over here, and I thought, man, I'm just going to cry through this episode. I prefaced the episode telling them that. And then when we started talking about it, it was more like almost and I know I know I put this out there and people, it's just like a spirit. It's like a happy spirit was in me to talk about my family, and it wasn't sad, and it was awesome. So thank you guys for giving me the platform and the topic, and let's get to these fans' questions. I appreciate you letting me say that.
Eddie Prather said, Brian, 2 questions. One, what was it like growing up with your dad and your big brothers on TV as much as they were? What did you think about seeing him? You mentioned 4 years old, sitting up in the rafters, seeing this bloody cage match. What was it like? What do you remember about seeing him on TV of like, wait, what's happening here?
So truth be told, a lot of my early memories were only of him on TV. Wow. And that's the truth. I would be scared of it. Like, he came back from Japan with a beard, and I wouldn't go to him for a month. My mom, I don't remember that. My mom told me that story till the day she passed. Like, you just wouldn't go to him. You would, and he scared me. He was a big old hairy dude, looked like a werewolf. And so I don't even know what we were talking about.
Seeing him on TV.
Seeing him on TV. So, yes, a lot of that early stuff was because he'd be gone all week, and I'd see him on TV. And he'd come in late at night, and I'd be asleep, and he'd leave the next day. Or, you know what I mean? And so it was literally in passing that as a youngster I saw my father. And that's sad, but it's not really, because I did get to see him on TV. But it was... I loved it, man. I loved it. It was, who wouldn't? You know what I mean? I got beat up in school sometime because of it. I beat people up sometime because of it. Like, it was just life to me. I didn't know any different. Everybody's dad isn't on TV.
Right.
What does your dad do?
Thought that's what dads did.
Yeah, that's what mine did. And so, when I was young, I didn't think about that too much. But it was an opportunity for me to see him and me to. Like, I don't know, it made me look at him in a different light, which again made me hear Robert and Ron and Jimmy Golden talking about him as their friend and their cohort. It let me hear about him from a different perspective. It was so cool. I idolized him, man, still do.
Eddie, also his second question says, do you have any good stories on how your mom was able to handle a house full of sons? She must have been a saint to handle the chaos 4 boys could create.
Yes. So 4 boys, all different ages, and their father was a pro wrestler. So you can imagine. Now, so saint is a word I would use for her. Which I would use sometimes. I was going to say witchcraft or witch doctor, because she
was going to say witch saint. You just stopped at witch.
Oh, no. Yeah, I did. But I was trying to look for witch doctor, because sometimes she would go so crazy and dance in a circle, slapping everything around her. And by God, you sat down and you shut up when that happened. And so look, she did what she needed to do to raise 4 boys, and that of. We never murdered anybody. That one was alleged.
Who hit harder, your mom or Orndorff?
Mom's hurt a lot worse. I can tell you that much. I'll tell you that much right now. Paul Orndorff ain't got nothing to hurt me like that. Not a thing. Now, he can't even bring that Vader stuff over here, because I ain't that mama hitting you hurts. It hits different. It hits the heart, right through your butt to your heart.
Dave McClay, he's on our ad-free show post. He said, Did the Armstrong boys love their mom as much as Mr. T loved his?
Yes. Yes. I love the question,
Speaking of
too.
long Hall of Fame.
And it's perfect that question, perfect timing, because we did talk about the Hall of Fame. And yeah, you know what? Yes, we did. And if you notice, my father recognized her in his Hall of Fame speech. I think I recognized her, or I know I recognized my wife. I'm not sure if my mom was there. But yeah, we did. We loved. We still love her that much. And she was a saint. In all honesty, like my wife, all my brothers' wives, they look up to her because she does the right thing. She's not one that says what she means and means what she says, because she didn't speak a lot. But when she said it, by God, she meant it. And you better listen. And she was always supportive and loving and kind until she didn't have to be, until she wasn't supposed to be. And that's when she would do. And so, I couldn't ask for better parents. I thank God on my knees for the place I was born, the people I was born to, the people I was born with, the people I'm married to, and the kids he gave me and the grandkids they gave me. So this episode has been awesome for me. My heart is full. And let's answer some more questions so I can go home on my one day off and hug my wife and watch college football.
Brad Stanton wants to know, he says, what did your family think of DX?
So, look, I think, my mom would always go, "Oh, Brian, that's horrible. Why are you don't point to your crotch like that." You know what I mean? She would whisper it too, but that was her. She was literally a Southern belle from uptown in Marietta, Georgia when way back when, you know what I mean? They owned a cafe. They owned he worked at Have a Tampa Cigar. Like, she comes from like well-to-do Southern belle, and she married this this guy from the other side of the streets, and my dad. And so it really is like a fairy tale story that I'll to this moment look upon, until I die, look upon as a fairy tale. The debutante got with the guy at the wrong side of the street, and the rest is history, man. And what a famed and storied life we've lived.
Gotta love it.
I love it, man. I love it.
We kind of hit on this.
Are you still naked? That just hit me again. You're still naked. Yeah. That's not like jacked too. Jacked.
It's covering up my best feature, my delts or whatever those
Your nipples.
Called. I've been complimented on a lot of things in life. It's never been my nipples. Not once.
I'm interested to find out what are one of the other things.
You haven't seen any of those yet. Not entertainment, not host, nothing.
That was a softball. I apologize for that.
I've been complimented on my softballs. Sean McCusker, he asked, you kind of touched on it earlier. He tweeted us at You Didn't Know Pod. How did Joseph James get the name Bob Armstrong?
Yeah, well, so his brother's name was Bobby, and I think my brother Brad was born at that time, so they named Brad Robert. So just Bob was a name that he threw out. My dad did to go with Armstrong. So, you know what I mean? So it wasn't Joe Armstrong. It wasn't Melton Armstrong. You know what I mean? It was just another name. It's a stage name, right? I think it's called a pseudonym.
Ooh.
I'm not sure. I think
AKA an
alias?
alias?
Got that wrong. I got that wrong, probably.
Also known by WWE Master 2018. How about that guy? That's a name right there.
I like him. That's a mouthful.
He tweets at You Didn't Know Pod, at Brian R.D. James, at the Casio Kid. 3 questions, he said.
Whoa. Wow.
1, who was the bully in the family? Let's stick to the brothers.
Yeah, no. No. I honestly, and this is sad, but you know how honest I am on here about myself. I feel like if you don't cleanse the carpet will never be cleansed. And so, I was probably the biggest bully, but not to my family members, to other people. And It was probably because I thought I was cool, and you know what I mean. And I regret a lot of things I did when I was young. Bullying anyone ever is one of them. You know what I mean? And I don't recall I don't think I locked people in the bathroom or a lot. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't do stuff like that. But I'm sure I pushed people around because I thought I was somebody. And I know that because I did that until 12 years ago when I admitted that I was an addict and an alcoholic, and I had to become honest with myself. I went like, wow, I did some pretty crappy things when I was younger, and being a bully is one of them. And again, I wish I could take that back. I just can't. So I'm going to say me, and that question turned into a lot deeper than I thought, but it feels good to get that out of my head and into the ether. I apologize again to anyone. But who was the baddest in my family? Like, my brother Steve's a bad dude, and he could put a hurting on you. And so if it comes down to just fighting, if that's what the guy's talking about, like, because I come from a house where we all fought a lot, so some people don't. I hear that happens.
Right.
So this guy's idea of bullying and my idea might be two different things. But my brother Steve was a bad apple.
He leans. This might be tough to decipher based on what you're saying. He's also asked who was grounded the most. Did you get grounded back then?
I don't know. We didn't get in a lot of trouble because we got beat. You know what I mean? And
I was about to say grounded wasn't a thing back then.
No, it wasn't really a thing. You got that ass whooped, and you know what? You didn't need to get grounded then. You just learned your lesson, and you were back home before the street light comes on. Dang, how hard.
Who you think got in trouble the most?
Brad, my brother Brad.
Okay.
As a kid, he got. I was not there because he was also, I think he's 7 years older than me, Brad. Okay. So, but when he was a kid, he was. They would have put him on something. You know what I mean? He would have been on he'd have been on a spectrum or something.
Put him on something.
Yeah, they would have. And I get it. I guess that's what everybody's telling you to do. But he turned out fine. He turned out like a human. And you know what? You grow up and you learn social. You know what I mean? You learn that. You learn how to do that. That's what life used to be. Now you're uncomfortable going outside, so I have GGBDGGQ.
None of us are perfect when we're born. None of us are perfect when we go out, brother.
No, that's
it's all about what you learn in between.
Amen. But yeah, he got whooped the most.
And his last one from WWE Master 2018 says, "Who was the most disgusting in your family, aka farts, burps, etc."
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with my mom. No. No, not in a million years would I go her, bless her heart. But I believe there was about 5 of them in a tie, because bless her heart, for real, she lived in all that funk. She lived in that locker room.
Amazing.
Just dirty talking, farting, pooping, poop going out of your mouth.
Well, somebody's got to have the best fart title. Who is it? Who's the best Armstrong farter?
I'm gonna say my dad.
Okay.
My dad could. So 2 things. He could
let
fart.
the bullets fly.
He could fart, but puking. When he puked.
What?
Yeah, it was a thing where the whole house was alerted. What do
you mean?
Loudest. I mean, just like, God Almighty, what is going on in there? Like, it was it's the only time I ever saw him weak. You know what I mean?
Oh.
It was out of his control. And so it just took over him. Like, ah! Was it? My daughter Amberly does the exact same thing when she throws up. I swear. And she just screams like, ah!
What a great moment. Your daughter's screaming and puking. You're like, oh man, you remind me of props.
Tear drops my eye.
You're just like your grandfather.
Give her a big hug when she comes out.
All right. Michael Llewellyn, excuse me. Michael Llewellyn says,
yep.
Why do you think
Morgan Llewellyn's brother.
Yeah. Why do you think Brad never got over on a major scale? He was one of my favorites as a kid, and I just never understood why he didn't break through. To me, he was one of the best hands in the ring and had the look, and I think his personality was there when he got to show it.
Yeah, look, people can say he didn't get to show it, but this guy hits the nail on the head. Llewellyn hits the nail on the head. I think it was Llewellyn, actually.
Llewellyn.
he did have the look, and he was a great hand. Ric Flair will tell you top 5 in the business, and that's think about that. That's coming from Ric Flair.
He's been in with a lot.
We've been in the ring with a lot of good ones, and he puts Brad Armstrong in top 5, and like, whoa, that's saying something to me. I put him in my top 3, to tell you the truth. Probably top 1 because he's my brother, but he didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to let his personality through. He just didn't, and that's. Look, I don't know if that's Booker Man's fault to not get him comfortable in a setting where he's comfortable and shoot a bunch of stuff and put it together. Because I'm telling you, you could shoot for 30 minutes with Brad and have 5 minutes of gold, and I mean gold, because he was one of the funniest, quick-witted. One-liners, he knew old songs. He was a friggin' party trick, man. Brad was electric and was on, but he didn't get an opportunity for that to be on television a lot. And so I don't know whose fault it was, but this guy says, from an outsider perspective, this guy, what was his name? Llewellyn says he didn't get an opportunity that much to do it. And so maybe me looking back now, maybe that's the case. Maybe he didn't get a lot of chance to do it. And maybe they should have given him or figured out a way. Because to me, that's what the creative team is, right? Is, okay, this guy has a bunch of strengths and he's got one weakness. How do we minimize that weakness with creative, you know what I mean? With creativity. And so that can be done. It's just going to take a lot of time and a lot of nerds to sit around and think about it and bounce stuff off their head, who got nothing better to do with their time than talk about trying to help this one character get over. But that's what I got paid for 10 years to do. And I'm getting paid to do it again. But they didn't take that opportunity. They didn't take that time. But if Brad, so what was said with a lot of people that know Brad, and what I say too, is if he could have been himself when the red light was on, he would have made it he would have been a huge star. And look, you never can tell. If my aunt, had testicles, she'd be my uncle. And so I don't know. And if a frog bumped his butt when he hopped, anyway, I don't know. But so maybe this guy brings up a good point. He didn't get the opportunity to let that side of him show.
Being yourself when that light turns on, easier said than done.
I've
heard a lot of people.
A lot of easier said than done. And to thinking about it now, it was, which the Observer mentioned earlier in a good way, it was a much simpler time. They didn't do a ton of... Memphis was like the only place doing like, every girl's crazy about a sharp dressed man. And here come the Fantastic, or whoever that was, with their matching bow ties and shot little videos and stuff. Like, nobody did that. They didn't do that on the big Georgia Championship Wrestling, you know what I mean, when it first started. So Brad was an up-and-comer wrestler, and how you got over was you went out there and wrestled, and you'd get an opportunity to talk, and he couldn't be himself while cutting a promo. And I feel like that was... He felt like he needed to be a serious baby face, and I'm just happy to be in the thick of things, and I'm going to do my dead level best to compete to the best of my ability every time. You know what I mean? Like, that was the baby face of the time, and so that's what he did every time, and it was... look, you could argue that was the right thing to be doing at this period. But as it got later and they started getting a little more flamboyant and stuff, I think he could have settled into something cool. I think his heart wasn't in it by the time it got there to Buzzkill or these other opportunities they gave him late in the game, just because of how we're talking about him right now. His heart wasn't in it then. It was like, I've done all this. You know what I mean? I've been doing this for a long time. I want to go home. And so, Brad was the greatest in my mind. My brother, the best, God darn it, what am I thinking of? Advice. The best advice that my father ever gave me, and he gave this to my brother Scott also. He said, stand on the apron and watch your brother.
Wow. That says a lot.
That says a lot. And I'm serious. Stand on the apron and watch your brother. And then and Dad was right. You would know if he comes to me with a frenetic energy of I got this guy in here, tag me. I know I got to get in like that too. You know what I mean? I got to get in and hit the guy, and take his arm and twist it and turn it over again. And so watch your brother, and then just act accordingly. You know what I mean? It was a simpler time. But I honestly think in that aspect of the wrestling and the execution of in-ring stuff, we really need to go back to a simpler time. And maybe that's where we should end this episode.
That
Tear
is.
drops my eye.
Body
temperature
you didn't cry.
No.
You didn't cry. You had a good time.
I did.
I
had
also,
a great time, actually.
I also think you touched on so many possible stories that I think we probably need a episode dedicated to each of your brothers and kind of dive in on that.
Look, I agree with that. I think each of them, and I'd love for people who only know my brother Scott as a referee to get to know him as Scott Superkick Armstrong. You know what I mean? Where the finish everybody's finished what the super kick back in the day. It is now, but Scotty was called Scott Superkick Armstrong, and so I don't know. I would love to talk individually about each of my brothers because Steve had a great career in Japan and in WCW and in Continental too. So yeah, each of them I'd love to spend time talking about each of them.
Also, it needs to be said one more time again. Speaking of, if you're new to the show for some reason, you're not caught up. Go back to a few months ago where you and the one and only Ryan Katz had your brother on and did talk to him. Great episode.
Yeah, it was a great episode. Hey, look, my brother has his own podcast, too. I know it's not under our umbrella here, but it's I think it's Armstrong Avenue. And he does a podcast, too, where he talks about more current things, and his is a good listen, too. But don't stop listening to mine to go listen to his. I didn't mean that.
Yeah, if you're running out of time each week, don't go to his. Go to ours.
Yeah.
All right, dog. Next week, we are going to discuss, because we need everybody in the world's angle on it.
Oh, Lord.
The Montreal Screwjob.
Oh, good.
Your favorite gentleman, Mr. Bret Hart.
Hey, what I have to say matters a great deal on the subject.
We'll hit on how it all played out.
But I do have some feelings, and you can imagine what they are.
We got a snippet of them a few weeks ago in an episode. Yeah. We're going to talk about it, the build up to it, shoot or work, like everybody says, thoughts on Bret, which should be fun, and Vince's role in it, and more. Yep. Thanks, everybody, for consuming this podcast. We appreciate you interacting with us. Make sure you continue to do so. So whether it's ever on ad-free shows and the message board there's the YouTube comments, like and subscribe while you're here watching if you're there. Also on our Twitter and all social media. At You Didn't Know Pod. He's at Brian R.D. James. I'm at the Casio Kid. I've had a blast. It was awesome to see you talk about your family like that.
Thank you guys, and it felt so good to me. It was really inspirational, again, for lack of a better word, but like it made me feel good, and I'm going to attack the rest of this day in a positive manner with a machine gun. No,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. It lifted me up. So I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to I don't own a machine gun, guys. I just want to state that clearly. Copyright for Bobby.
Thanks. Appreciate also Odom. Thank you for stepping in, brother, helping us get
stepping this. Up. Speaking of stepping up to the plate.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Odom did.
Odom has been a discreet package during this episode, but he has been so vital to its
You're watching it because he's here. Thank you. It would be the most boring episode ever, just me and you, just sitting here staring at each other. Our entire crew.
Shirt off too.
Hey, it takes a team behind me and you to get this thing going. Amen. So we appreciate our entire team. Appreciate the listeners and the viewers and the subscribers. Thank you so much.
Hey, I am sponsors Casio. As well, because Bluechew to do the do. We're gonna do the thing with you. Oh, okay, so I don't know.
Saving with Conrad. We're trimming our pumpkins.
Amen.
We are.
The pumpkins hit different.
Yeah, the pumpkins hit different for some reason. That's needs to be a shirt as well. So there you go. That's it for Casio, for Brian James.
Amen.
If you don't like this,
that's what my mama called me. And if you ain't down with that, I got 2 words for you. You know what? I'll save that for another time. But hey, thanks for listening. Oh, you didn't know?